Well, I'm going to give you some more reality on a doom and gloom scenario or a doom and gloom horizon. Actually, if you probably don't know this, but actually, Russia has way more many nukes than the United States. There's a lot of estimates out there that they have slightly more, but there's other people I think that have better estimates that they have way more numerous nukes. Now, last week, a Russian, he's actually the president of the Academy of Geopolitical Problems. He outlined two geographically weak points in the U.S. that could be attacked, or that should be attacked, in order to stop the NATO aggression against Russia. That's this guy. This guy's name was Konstantin Sivkov. So he says this is a perfect option, and it'd be fully justified to use against the United States of America for complete destruction of the enemy, because NATO has been moving to the borders or near Russia. So, hey man, you know what? This is per major media sources, okay? This is not some joke. This is not one of these alternative fearmonger deals. And I don't know if this is going to happen, because if you look back during the Cold War, there's been a lot of times where things almost happened in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, early 80s. Actually, if this happens, this would be a major, what the hell can I tell you? Major problem, obviously, for most of the United States, because the fallout would destroy the entire breadbasket of the United States, too. That's the other thing. All that fallout would go into the major crop protection areas of the United States. Russia has far more, I don't know what the real estimates are, because I don't think anybody does. It's a big secret, right? But it's probably Russia has almost twice as many nukes as the United States. That is probably fairly accurate. Now, he's advocating to actually hit the Yellowstone, because it's a supervolcano, would trigger it. You notice it would go over like all the areas, and actually this would shut down all the oil production areas in the Balkan Oil Reserve too. North Dakotas, it would shut all that down and be under ash. It's a pretty smart strategic move. Now, that's not the only thing he freaking advocates. He also advocates using nukes on the San Andreas fault to trigger tsunamis in California and also on the East Coast. Now, actually, if you think about this isn't too hard to figure out, because on the East Coast, for instance, Russians got a lot of nukes, they got a lot of submarines. They could plant nukes in strategic areas on the ocean floor, where there's fault lines, and they can be triggered remotely. I mean, I don't think there'd be any way to track this. I think, though, I'm going to tell you this: I don't think the intercontinental ballistic missile anymore is a threat. I know it's been said that they can knock them down when they're first launched from satellites through, I guess the Strategic Defense Initiative. But I think they actually have more sophisticated means to actually knock them down even before they are, near the United States, or they can knock them out, miles and miles above, land, which actually would cause an EMP. But something like this, where you actually had underwater nukes on, earthquake faults in deep in the Atlantic or the Pacific, and they were planted by submarine, and they could be triggered remotely. I don't think they can ever figure that out, even if they did that. There's no way they can trace that. It's kind of interesting, because this guy is actually saying to exploit the geophysical weak points in the United States. Now, actually, if you got a problem like this, what happens is, if say you had an earthquake even from the Canary Islands, and, there's a massive landslide, they've been talking about this for years. There could be a 100-foot, 200-foot, 300-foot wave that could be coming at the United States, and it could bury, some of the most important cities there are. But, that this is being talked about openly in Russian academic and political circles, this is not a joke. This guy's listed as a doctor of military sciences, and he laid out scenarios involving dropping a nuclear weapon near Yellowstone Supervolcano and the San Andreas Fault. Now, I am also thinking the East Coast too, because the East Coast actually has far more infrastructure than the West Coast. You're talking about New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., not Atlanta to be too far up, obviously. But all in the northeast, area around the New York metropolitan area, Long Island, New Haven, Connecticut, Delaware, Baltimore, Maryland, plus even up the river. There's Philadelphia. All those areas are extremely vulnerable to even a tsunami that is not of a mega tsunami. New York, it wouldn't take much. Really, it wouldn't. You see what happened during even a storm when the freaking subways got flooded. That was nothing. Florida actually can get very vulnerable, especially in South Florida. But, there's other parts of Florida that are over 300 feet, believe it or not. Like I'm in an area that's over 100 feet. I have to state, though, if you even have a 100-foot tsunami, you can't overlay it on the map and look into the area of land and say it's going to hit everywhere that's 100 feet elevation and lower. Soon as it hits land, it loses massive amounts of energy. But the point is, most of the cities are only about 20 feet above land. You don't need much, and it only needs a couple feet of water to shut everything down, all the infrastructure, all the communications, all the electricity, and totally cripple the United States in its output. But the Yellowstone talk is something that's actually very interesting, because that would actually destroy the entire breadbasket, almost the entire breadbasket of the United States, and also where all the shale oil is being produced. I mean, I guess you can get it going again, but it wouldn't be that easy. They've been talking about this thing's kind of ready to blow and all this kind of stuff. It could have happened 200-300 years from now, but if it's helped along by a nuke, hey, that's all it takes, right? So, they say it's long overdue in a colossal eruption. They've been measuring, Yellowstone, the area's going up a little bit, and but I'm not going to hold my breath on this deal. If it happens, it happens. But it's very, very interesting that at least you have, it's being openly stated in Russia to use this as a strategic weapon against the United States if the United States does not back away from its NATO aggression, quote unquote, according to them. Like, I don't know, Putin can freaking take over Ukraine anytime he wants. What the hell is this garbage, It ain't his country, buddy, you know what I mean? But they're talking about nuking the San Andreas Fault, nuking the Yellowstone, and I think they would also nuke on the East Coast, because actually the East Coast has, if you look at a map of the GDP output, oh, God, you wouldn't believe how much this comes out of the New York metropolitan area. It's ridiculous. I know a lot of people don't like that area. I don't like that area too much. But as far as GDP output, that New York metropolitan area and all the surrounding cities around there, that is one of the main, biggest powerhouses of U.S. GDP. And it could be totally knocked out with the tsunami coming from the East Coast, because most of that area, including all the harbors and where the warehouses are on the coast and everything, that would be knocked out, be totally destroyed. He's not actually stating that, but I can kind of figure that would be something that could be very much easily done. I mean, all you'd have to do is plant some nukes deep down in the water in the Atlantic Ocean under some fault lines, and it could be triggered off remotely at any time. I'd imagine they're already set. I bet you they're already set to go. I would think so. That's one thing about Russia, man. They're pretty well protected because, um, most of Russia that's actually on the coastline, it's like there's not a lot of activity going on there. Actually, most of Russia, where most of the population is, it's actually Western Russia, close to Europe, and they're fairly well protected from all different ways. So, again, this is a major media story. It was he's not like a college professor, he's an actual doctor of military sciences. He's basically an advisor to the military. He's talking about, it'd be justified because NATO has been moving onto the borders of Russia. It's a justifiable option. And his name is Konstantin Sivkov, and he's the Russian president of the Academy of Geopolitical Problems. He's not some, egghead professor just talking. He's basic, and where there's one, there's a hell of a lot more. And just using a little common sense, wouldn't you think this would be a very good strategy for them? Using just a little common sense? Yeah, I would think so. But the fact that they're openly talking about it, that says a lot. I don't know what the hell to tell you, man. But if you're a prepper, you're not stupid. I can tell you that right now. You are not stupid. It's a big joke until it happens. Everybody hopes it don't happen, and you don't want to live like the sky's gonna fall every day. But the people that just are like ostriches and they stick their head in the sand, hope the problems will never happen, they're not smart either. You don't want to be a worrywart on one hand, but then you don't want to be an ignoramus on the other hand and just totally ignore these type of things, especially when the guy's warning you. It's almost like, you figure this guy's gonna mug you down the street, and it's almost like, yeah, he's over there, he's got the knife, he's gonna do this. Hey, you just walk right over there like, la-di-da-di-da. That's basically, they're giving you a freaking hell of a lot of warning here right now, right? So, I don't know. He's these freaking Russian yo-yos, man. They should drop the price of oil to $1 a freaking barrel, for crying out loud, and really make him broke for all I care, Anyway, there's probably something you could do about this. I don't know what, but be prepared. Sorry, I can't give you any solutions about this deal. I don't want to scare the crap out of people, but I had to put this out because it was major media. It's not one of those things where the freaking alternative media is talking about this shit for umpteen years, like the sky's gonna fall and blah, 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 and it's scaring the crap out of people for views. This was actually, put out by this guy, and it's like, I'm sure he's not the only one thinking about this over in Russia. And, you have this Russian supervolcano. It's going to make Mount St. Helens look like a sneeze. So, what the hell can I tell you, right? And you got to remember this, too. Russia has not been stockpiling all these nukes just for the fun of it. They plan to use them someday. It's not a peaceful country. Maybe they're peaceful people, but the guys on the top are not peaceful. They're not. I know some people think Putin's the guy's the hero and all this. I'm like, God, whatever, do whatever you want to think. He's no worse than anybody that's everywhere else, but he's no better either. So, use a little common sense. If Russia does have a lot of stockpile of nuclear weapons, they're not a very wealthy country. They don't have very good infrastructure in the country, except maybe in Moscow and some of the major cities. But hey, they pour a lot of money into the high-tech military. You think they're not going to use it someday? They're waiting for their opportunity, their window of opportunity. When's that going to be? I don't know. But it looks like this is one of their plans to set off Yellowstone and to set off tsunamis. Ouch. That's not going to be cool. So anyway, and if you're in Florida, make sure you're at least 100 foot up, or get the hell out of Florida and go to 5,000 feet up or something like that. But hey, you know what? The mountain people in the USA, they're still going to survive. That's all I got to tell you. No messing around.